Welcome back to another episode of Trailer Teardowns. We're going to start today's episode off by, again, bringing an offline discussion Angel and I were having online. So Angel, after a recent record, brought up Human Centipede's box office numbers. And we were discussing what counts, and tell me if I'm wrong on this one, Angel, what counts as it being successful versus not. And Angel's initial posting on it was that Human Centipede 2010 cost 1.5 million euros to make, and it had a worldwide box office of $352,161, which is definitely far below the 1.5 million cost of the movie. And so, Angel, you were saying sort of it was not a success, right? Was the argument?
I'm trying to backtrack here. So we were talking, I think we were doing an episode on, I think it was Hard Eyes.
Yeah.
Hard Eyes. And we were just talking about like horror movies that are successful and made money. And you made just the side comment that like, oh, Human Centipede made a lot of money. And I'm always just like curious. I'm like, oh, like, how much money did that make? I wasn't like trying to fact check it. I was just like curious because like, I know that was sort of like a cult hit kind of thing. And I've actually never seen it. But I was just curious, and I went and looked at the numbers, and I was like, oh, it only made $350,000 at the box office, not a lot of money. And so the debate was like, oh, well, it was a failure in the theaters. It wasn't a success in theaters. And my point of view is, and I feel like the general point of view of maybe people who report the success of movies is they look at the box office numbers. If it's a movie that goes to theaters, the theatrical, that's like that instant, like, oh, it did well at the box office or it bombed. Yes, there are other things that kind of come in to play. Like you pointed out, it made 3.8 million in DVD
and Blu-ray
sales, but no one really factors that in. You know, I think that's not really the go-to what people write about or like point out. It's just really the theatrical. How well did it do in theatrical? And it didn't. I mean, I could see why it did well on video. You know, it had a lot of cult following. People were very curious about like what this movie's about. But also those numbers aren't even, if you look at it, that's over 13 years. 3.8 million is not really huge numbers if you were to break it down that way. So yeah, that was my sort of debate and point of view there. So, but you disagree.
Yeah. And I guess I was sort of saying, I think that might have been sort of the old approach. But I feel like now with, not many people even do DVD and Blu-ray. It's all streaming. But there's a lot of things that come out in the box office in theaters and then also go straight to streaming either simultaneously or like very soon after. I mean, that window is like, I feel like a big debate in the industry. Is it hurting the box office? Is it benefiting? Things like that. A lot of like the HBO movies go very quickly or Netflix. But I think like for me, if a movie costs 1.5 million, and then if you total how much money it ends up making from all the different sources, then you get if it is a profitable movie. Like I feel like this is not at all an equal footing, but Star Wars kind of invented the selling of merch as a means to sort of make money off of the IP. It's not a traditional thing that we factor in. However, you can make a lot of money off of it. I remember when HBO Game of Thrones was on and there was the debate about sharing of passwords. And I think like the head of HBO at the time had come on and was like, we actually don't care if people share passwords because that means more people are watching our stuff and probably buying our merch. And so we make a lot more money in the end. And I thought that was an interesting perspective, especially with the pandemic where a lot of people are still staying at home for a lot of stuff, streaming it or buying it at home, even at the same price as a movie theater ticket, to rent it early. I think sort of the games evolved. And so in my mind, if Human Centipede made more than double its cost, I feel like that's a win.
If you're looking at just the numbers on that, the domestic sales, how many t-shirts did Human Centipede sell, how many plush dolls did it sell? Sure.
Oh, like God.
You could, whatever it is that they've, yes, 1.5 million euro budget is not huge. And, across these numbers. But I'm just looking at, this was a theatrical movie. It went into theaters first. This is before really streaming what it is right now. So, and even now, like people, if you go to Hollywood Reporter, Deadline, after the weekend, people are reporting like, oh, this movie made a lot of money or this movie bombed.
Yeah.
And I think because they're looking at the box office. That's where I was coming from.
Yeah. I mean, I think also people use box office numbers to assess if people are interested in it. Though, again, I feel like that's like, the polls where they call landlines. Like it's a very biased group. Not everybody nowadays goes out to watch movies in theaters. I mean, that's, our eternal discussion. It's a litmus test for the people who do go to theaters to watch movies if they're interested. But I think there's also a large range of people that do watch them at home that are not necessarily counted in that, similar to, my weird analogy, but the phone surveys.
I think it's a bigger debate or sort of discussion of like, was this movie successful? And I think you just have to look at it across the board. You can also look at it over time. A movie like Waterworld, when it came out in 95, it was deemed it was a bomb because it cost so much money. But where are we at? 20 years later, it's probably made its money back.
Yeah. That's true. And I mean, and you got what Universal Studios has the we would never have the Waterworld stunt
show, which is the best stunt show ever.
I have to say I highly enjoyed it. I admittedly also, I think I went with you years ago. But yeah, I mean, no two movies are alike, which is a great transition that I didn't just come up with in the moment specifically to call it a transition. It's a segue to the trailer that we're going to dive in today, which is a really interesting one, Mickey 17. Take it away with the background.
Sure. Mickey 17. This is the new Bong Joon Ho movie starring Robert Pattinson, Naomi Ackie, Steven Yeun, Mark Ruffalo, and Toni Collette. It is coming out on March 7th. Some sort of just like background. So like this movie's release date has shuffled around a bit. This is Joon Ho's first movie since he won, since Parasite, which won the Oscar for Best Picture and Best Director. So there's a lot of interest in this movie. It was supposed to come out last March, but the strikes from 23 delayed the production, and he needed more time to finish the movie. Then it was given a January 2025 release, which is kind of typically a movie dump month. Where studios just release movies that they don't feel confident in, or the consensus is they aren't great. So that was pretty kind of surprising. And then it got pushed to April, and now it's moved again to March 7th, which was Sinners' original release date. So they basically swapped dates. So Sinners is now coming out in April. And this is based on a book called Mickey 7 by Edward Ashton. Did not know it was based on a book.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It does have like a very well thought out and intricate kind of story, which is really interesting. Well, what are your initial thoughts, Angel?
Initial thoughts. I like the look of the film. I think the look of the film and the cast is pretty great. I like the look of the film, the cinematography, production design, the effects. It doesn't look cheap. So no. Obviously Warner Brothers was basically saying, here, how much do you need? So yeah, it doesn't look cheap, and it's different. It's a sci-fi comedy. You don't really see a lot of sci-fi comedies, and I think that they're kind of hard to make. I can't think of a really good sci-fi comedy. It also looks fun and original, despite it being based on a novel. I don't know if it's how well-known the novel is, but yeah, those things stuck out.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see people watching this movie and then being like, I think I'm going to try and go read the book, like just to sort of see. I know that's happened with Three Body Problem from Netflix, which is not the first time that Three Body Problem has been made into a film IP, but it definitely has sort of taken off. And yeah, for those who checked out the trailer, it's about sort of cloning at some level, expendable kind of worker that can get regrown, I guess, each time after he dies, and then he's used for all these experiments. The thing that jumped out to me was it was very
less experiments, right? It's more like putting them to do dangerous things.
Yeah, dangerous things,
like, right?
Dangerous things. But I think dangerous things. Though I think one shot of the trailer had him in like a little glass case, and I thought they were adding gas, and maybe that's part of the cloning or the initial whatever process. I was interpreting that as maybe like, oh, they're testing out how this poisonous gas affects humans.
Yeah, I can see.
I mean, yeah. It seemed like a very fun in that sense. I really enjoyed the opening, which to me very much reminded me of like a classic Red Dwarf or Star Wars or Spaceball. You have that sort of epic music playing as the ship moves forward, and that's, I don't want to say it's not really an epic space trope, but I think in the latest Battlestar Galactica reboot, they do some nods to it. In Star Trek, I think they've done the movies, especially the more recent ones, have done nods to it. That feel of you see a massive ship go by, you've got the lens flare from the sun or something reflecting off. It just has this very epic feel. And I think they did a really good job of tying that with that instrumental initially. And then, as you said, how do they get that comedy out of it? The switch from him looking off and it's like, oh, astronaut looking off at the beautiful expanse that is space, and then his hand gets cut off and they're like, oh, like it's almost like meta, because you've got a commentary of somebody else being like, hey man, did you just see your own hand got cut off? Which I thought is like a nice touch, because it's sort of like putting the commentary that we have into the film. And then that switch to sort of the ironical song change, where you got that mix from sort of instrumental to the ironical song, sort of showing kind of what we've seen in a lot of trailers, where it starts one way and then flips to another. I know we talk a lot about Companion, but Companion did a really good job of that. Also, what was that one with Justin Long that you had me watch?
The Barbarian.
Yeah, Barbarian. Like Barbarian trailers, highly recommend. They've got multiple different ones, and they like do a great job of completely flipping it on you. In such a great way that I think they did a nice job of that. And I feel like there was a group effort from all the different aspects of filmmaking that went into this sort of trailer and how they designed it, which I have a lot of respect for. They have like the voiceover of Robert Pattinson's character, who I gotta say, since the Batman, he's like very much grown on me. I think a lot of the film choices he's made are really interesting, and I think his acting is great. So it's a lot of fun to see him in a role like this. And I think, the mix of his VO and his character, like the way he's portraying it, sounds like a schlub, like sounds like somebody, oh, I didn't really do this. And like, it's like that person who hasn't really tried much in life and does a really good job of like, it's in his voice, the way he just sort of carries himself, lack of self-esteem or whatever you want to call it. And then mix that in with dialogue from the film, I thought was really cool, because you've got this, you've got the epic visuals, you've got the voiceover, you've got the dialogue. It's like a lot coming at you at once, and I think they thread the needle very well with it.
Yeah, another thing that like stuck out to me was like Pattinson, like I'm not like a Robert Pattinson like junkie, but it's cool.
You were more of a Jacob fan rather than Edward.
Oh, Twilight reference. I don't. Who's who?
Jacob is the werewolf, and Edward was the vampire.
Got it. Okay, maybe I'll have to go back and watch that. No, it's cool to see him doing different things. He's could have easily been like stuck in like these like teen heartthrob type roles. What he's doing with the voice and the character is really funny and different. Yeah, no, it's the Batman. I was actually looking back at his other.
He had one
just to kind of see.
I think the first one where he did a shift, and I never saw it, but I think he's in like a insane asylum or something. There's some movie where I think that was like some of the premise. I never saw it, but that was his first like post Twilight that's very different than the heartthrob thing.
Yeah, he definitely had like a string of movies like that were kind of like dark and moody, and he did a David Cronenberg movie. It doesn't seem like he's the lead. He's not the star in it, but he's definitely has. I can't think of any movie. I should probably pull up his IMDb and see, but anything that's more sort of like light-hearted movie, I think everything is kind of like very serious take, and then this one maybe is like sort of first foray into like comedy. But yeah, no, it's kind of cool to see him doing something different and not kind of falling into a different sort of path.
Yeah, and I think he is also playing. I mean, he's the protagonist, but it's also the straight person in the film. Like there's what looks like the girlfriend who's kind of funny. A lot of the supporting characters that you see in this trailer are sort of comedic. You've also got this sort of weird fascism dystopia reveal midway through that I thought was both interesting story-wise and then also expanded on how they were telling the story visually. It reminded me a lot of Okja, the one about the like genetically modified pig cow thing, in that they've got this person who runs, I think it's Tilda Swinton plays that character in Okja, but it's a woman who is runs the company and is very fanatic, fighting for profits. I want to say I didn't do a comparison, but like Toni Collette's look was very similar to the look of, I think it was Tilda Swinton in Okja. And in Okja, they also had, it was a mix of these sort of earth tones, but then when you have the sort of fascism or the crazier people in it that also added to the comedy, you got a lot in the wardrobe and the art design and the color space. And I thought that was really interesting in this because when you get to the Mark Ruffalo, and Toni Collette characters, the wardrobe changes. The color is a little bit more popping, and you get that juxtaposition, which I thought was really cool. And in addition, and tell me if you agree on this one, because I haven't seen Fallout since it came out, but the feel of the world and some of maybe sort of the direction or color also felt a little bit Fallout-esque, and sort of the way that they have very odd characters, but then yeah, I don't even know how to describe it. It just felt a little bit like Fallout to me when I was watching at the end. The way that they shot the action sequences, the way that they've got there's a moment where the people are all lining up and they're shooting, and I think the implication is they're getting rid of the multiples because that's sort of one of the premises is you can't have multiples. I'm curious, why can't you have these multiples? And then they have these like group that's shooting. However, as we've discussed before, in trailers you can take things out of context, and when doing so, you can make a trailer tell a slightly different story. And in that one where they're shooting off camera, we have no idea if they're shooting multiples or if it's part of some revolution or if it's something else that I thought was interesting. I was just reading, I just got a book, and an A24 came out with this book, and it's about the marketing memorabilia that films come out and then send to try and, persuade people to see a movie or just to like find it fun. When Anchorman 2 came out, there was like Ron Burgundy underwear that you could get. There was, I remember, Superbad. I think you and I both got the special DVD on that one, and it came with a t-shirt, and the t-shirt was the worst made t-shirt ever. It was hilarious. It you literally, the seams weren't right, and it was hilariously poorly done. But in the foreword of this book, why I'm bringing up the story, the person, it was like this indie filmmaker, and he talked about they had a movie and they were making the trailer, and it's like kind of an action-y movie, but the trailer didn't come off action-y. So he went to the trailer editor and was like, "Hey, can you make this more action-y? Like, it just needs to feel that." And when he came back, there was an exploding helicopter in it. Just a helicopter go by and explodes, and he's like, "Well, that's not in the movie." And the trailer editor was like, "But did it feel more actiony?" And the guy's like, "Yeah." And so they kept it in. And then apparently it was an ongoing joke at that indie filmmaking production house, where every action film they did, they threw that same exact shot of the exploding helicopter in the trailer. But it also goes to show you can tell different stories based on how you clip together things in the movie, in the trailer, to give you the feel of the movie itself, even if it's not how the movie's playing out.
Yeah. A couple of things there. Trying to remember everything. Didn't want to like cut you off, but I would want to know what trailer that is. That sounds interesting and funny with we're just throwing in this helicopter. But you mentioned Okja. I don't know if you realize the connection. Bong Joon Ho directed that as well.
Oh,
so maybe.
okay. Then that makes sense that it would potentially have that feel.
So yeah, he directed that. We didn't cover any of his filmography, but yeah, he directed Parasite, Okja, Snowpiercer, The Host. So just to kind of go back to what you were saying, I have not seen Fallout the show. I've seen the trailer. I've seen images. I didn't really connect anything there, but it's definitely on my watch list to check out. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I think we've talked about this in a couple other podcasts, but yeah, like trailers, they can be cut multitude of different ways to kind of get you interested in the movie and sort of like maybe trick you in terms of what you're seeing and what to expect. One thing I thought about this, like, I felt like this movie or this trailer could easily be recut to have a different tone,
Mm-hmm.
which like I feel like you can recut it in a way to have a serious tone and not and sort of take out that comedy, and it would that make people more interested in it. That was just something I kind of thought of as I watched it, and I don't know. I don't think it would. I don't know. I mean, I think it being funny, and obviously there's probably going to be some commentary there about what it means to be a human, which I hope they don't like retread, because I feel like these movies with like clones or androids, I feel like they repeat that thread or that theme too
Mm.
much. It's like what it means to be a human. Are they a human? No, they're expendable. We don't, so hopefully they kind of just skip that. We've seen that before and heard that before.
Also interesting, I thought in this one, especially at 147 in, there's this like guy in a pigeon suit, like a full out pigeon suit. And in the background, it looks like there's a giant rock, either a meteor or maybe it's a giant egg from a pigeon dinosaur. Like it seems like they're pulling in a lot of things that are kind of hidden within the pictures of so much other stuff going on that could be really fun. That just sort of seeing that, you're like, huh. They don't tell you anything about that, and yet, like, I bet there's a whole part of that world which makes me want to see it even more.
Yeah, I didn't catch that pigeon guy and the big rock. Yeah, this movie just I'm really curious how it's gonna do. Again, like I feel like this movie's sort of like a hard sell to it just feels not like a typical studio movie.
It's definitely not like a big budget action movie, but then
Though
again,
there
yeah,
is some of that. They obviously squeezing that in at the end of the trailer. Robert Pattinson. People know him, and does he sell a movie? Maybe, but like him playing this type of role, maybe not. And like, I think this trailer they're using the director's name, obviously the
yeah,
cast. There's a lot of name cast. That's kind of typical of like comedies. Where you're like, if you're selling a comedy, I feel like most comedy trailers they're highlighting the cast, right? So I think that's
yeah,
just
yeah,
sort of
yeah.
like a comedy trailer trope. But then obviously they want to get the film fans, the cinephiles to come and see this because it's Bong Joon Ho, his new movie from Parasite. Everyone loved it.
Yeah.
Not everyone, but a lot of people liked it
No,
and
I
did
thought it was great.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was great too. So really curious, and I think it looks fun and original and different, but I could see this being a gamble. I'm curious how much Warner Brothers spent on it. And again, going back to our sort of
Yeah.
opening banter, like, will this be successful, like based on like box office? Like, like I'm sure every studio wants a movie to open big and make
Yeah.
money.
Yeah. And I think it's hard in this day and age, if it's not a pure action movie, for it to make it big in the box office. Like it's hard. I mean, we had Coda the other year that was like a sleeper that ended up doing really well. I mean, Parasite similarly. I think this one, yeah, it's really interesting because it is epic, but because of the comedy aspect of it, there's this weird thing in our industry, I feel like, that I think comedies are harder to act in. That you need the comedic timing. There's the pacing, the direction has to be kind of spot on. Like I feel like comedies are harder both to act in and to do well. And yet, name a comedy movie that had an Oscar nomination for like Best Picture. I think it's not for a while. And and Best Actor very rarely come out of comedies. I think maybe Jojo Rabbit was like in the running, and that was like a very dark comedy.
Yeah. The first thing that kind of popped in my head, I'm sure there's more recent, and this one's older, way older. As Good as It Gets, I feel like that was uh,
Mm.
nominated for Best Picture. Jack Nicholson, I think he
Yeah,
won
yeah.
Best Actor.
Oh, Jack Nicholson. I
Um,
mean, not Robert Downey Jr. Cuba Gooding Jr. Oh my God, who played the other male lead?
Greg Kinnear.
Yeah, Greg Kinnear.
I think
Yeah.
Helen Hunt won
Oh
won
yeah, yeah.
the Oscar too.
But that
But
one,
I
but that one
imagine
is
I
like,
imagine from
yeah,
'97 to now there have been comedies that have been nominated for Best
yeah.
Picture.
Though I don't. I mean, I feel like that was. I feel like that was a very dark comedy, though. That it had some comedic moments, but like, there's a guy who gets beat up. But I just think it's interesting. I think that's what makes it interestingly hit or miss, is that you have diehards that go to horror movies, diehards that go to action movies, but when it comes to comedies, people are kind of like, I could see this doing really well on streaming because this is something people will be like, oh, like this could be kind of fun. Let me put it on. And I'm curious, I agree with you, how many people are actually getting out to see this in the theaters. Though I do think, just one last thing to add, I do think they're kind of trying to target is it the Gen X? I don't know the generation stuff very well, but the people who like know Red Dwarf, which is kind of like Canadian sci-fi, or Star Wars, like that. It's a nod to that at some level that is they're leaning on potentially as those people coming out and being like, oh, I want to see this. Oh, the people who look at the best picture directors and say, okay, I'm going to see the next movie by them is a unique niche, I think. But I think they're playing to that.
Yeah, this one, I think Warner Brothers is like, who are we marketing this to? And I think they're trying to hit a few different targets,
Mm-hmm.
Robert Pattinson, he's not on the level of Leonardo DiCaprio or Brad Pitt, or trying to think because so they're sort of like same level or like that range. So I think highlighting the comedy aspect is crucial, and I think I'm imagining it's going to be a funny movie, and it's not just like what's seen in the trailer. There are movies that like you see the trailer like, wow, this is not funny. The movie itself is not funny, but the trailer was. But like the action at the end, maybe it's not really a sci-fi action movie. The action,
maybe just switch it on us.
The last like 15 minutes of the movie is where it's action,
Yeah.
So like they're trying to give a little bit of taste of everything. So like, I think they have a challenge for this movie and see. I mean, and it's an expensive movie. The budget is like 150.
Oh, yeah.
And if you were to like compare like another movie of Bong Joon Ho, like Snowpiercer was a sci-fi action movie, and that one had a $40 million budget. So he definitely got a huge bump.
Yeah. I mean, this is Star Trek level of creatures, and there's a lot of CGI in this.
Yes. Yeah. And they obviously like opened up the checkbook for him based on success with the Oscars a number of years ago. And
I mean, I hope it does well solely because I think he's a great director. Like we were talking you asked about like, would I go see movies based on directors? I feel like for him, I probably would. He's on a short list of, if Bong Joon Ho came out with a movie, I would definitely consider it more than others because of the past work and just that it's interesting. It's not the same thing that we always see.
Yeah, no, he has like a different point of view in like with his movies. Like I haven't seen a lot of his movies. I've seen Parasite, I've seen The Host, which is a fun monster movie. I never saw Okja. Snowpiercer, he's just got this like different point of view, which is, I think it's cool and unique. So I think the selling of a sci-fi comedy will be hard for audiences, because I'm trying to think like what's a good sci-fi comedy that you can think of that's like not like Galaxy Quest. That one's sort of
good.
So good, but I wouldn't consider that a sci-fi comedy.
I mean, it's a comedy and it's sci-fi for sure.
Yeah. I mean, if we want to start out a debate, okay. But like it's based on, that one's sort of like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yeah. Which I don't think they've really done a good job of making into a movie. It's one of my favorite book series or collections, but I don't think they've done a good job in making a movie. But also that particular kind of humor of Douglas Adams is really hard because it's like a very dry humor. Okay. I mean, Fifth Element, would you consider that a sci-fi comedy, or would that be more like an action?
I would call it a sci-fi action movie. It has some weird, absurd things, I mean, Gary Oldman's funny in it, again, do we debate this again? It's
No. I mean, I agree. I don't know.
The Hitchhiker's Guide was like really the only thing that could kind of popped into mind. And
again, there's Coneheads at some level is like a sci-fi comedy because you've got aliens. I think there's is like Mom and Dad versus the Universe or something. There's from the 80s. I think there was
Mom and Dad Save the Universe.
Is that what it is? Yeah. It's like they're
Save the World.
But they're like not the best movies. Some of them. I enjoyed Coneheads. I also think this is a good time to turn to what I now am lovingly calling Angel's YouTube comment corner. You want to highlight some YouTube comments that were pulled for this trailer?
Yes, I pulled these way back. So both of these were related to Robert Pattinson, and I think kind of hit a couple points that we already talked about. But like one comment says, "Love how everyone from trolling Robert Pattinson in his Twilight days to everyone praising him."
Yeah.
We're talking about.
I mean, and a
lot of the comments were kind of like commenting and praising, like, oh, he looks fun, he looks different, the voice looks weird, and
Yeah.
like, here's an example: Robert Pattinson doing another weird, freaky little accent. We are so back.
Yeah, and I think that also goes to show, I think what happens in when actors are in films is they get put into these boxes, right? Alec Guinness from Star Wars, he's a classically trained actor and just was known for Star Wars and couldn't get out of that box. That I think a lot of actors, they're in these movies and people go, oh, like that's what you do. That's like all you can do, or that's your acting ability. And when it is actually the entire movie, right? I mean, Twilight was written by somebody. It's based off of a book. It's, IP. It's the direction, like all the different things that go into it. And yet he sort of got put in this box of like, oh, he's Edward from, the vampire movie. And then now people are like, oh, he can do more things. And I think it's interesting because it's really just the perspective that they've seen him in because of those previous movies.
One thing, just this going into just sort of like digging into the trailer, and just one thing that I was sort of slightly confused on, and this is obviously probably an effect of like, again, you're seeing a 2-hour movie truncated into 2 minutes, and they're gonna cut corners in here or there. But when like in the trailer, when the clone meets the original Mickey, he seems surprised to find the original Mickey, and like based on what we've seen in the trailer, it's presented as if he knows that he's a clone. Like the Expendables know that they are expendable and that they're clones. Doesn't it seem like he asks, like, we're multiples? It's at 121, but if you turn on the captions, it just says we're multiples. Like there's no question. So he's not questioning.
Well, I think it's sort of like what was that Arnold Schwarzenegger movie that was about clones? It wasn't Seventh Day, was it, or Sixth Day?
Sixth Day.
It was Sixth Day, and that one is they do a DNA thing in case somebody dies, and then they think he died, and so they then build the clone, and so then you've got a clone running around. That I feel like it might be one of those circumstances here where they thought the last Mickey that was created died, and so then they were like, okay, let's fire up another one, and they just fire up a new one until that one dies, and then the first thing he always does is like goes back to his room to fall asleep. And so then he does that, and boom, the Mickey's still there because it hasn't died. And whoever, created the clone made a mistake.
So which one do you think is the clone? The one on the left or the right? This is at 116.
I think the one on the left who is already asleep is well, I mean, they're both clones, but I think they're all clones, because I think they kill him once my guess is there's only one in existence, and after that one dies, they do a new clone. So if it's Mickey 17 and 17 is the multiple, then Mickey 16 is the previous one. So I think the one on the left that was sleeping is Mickey 16, and the one that comes in is Mickey 17. So Mickey 17 is like a later clone, but they're all clones at this point, I think.
You think the two in the room are clones? You don't think one is the original?
I don't think the original continues existing. I think that's the thing that they're implying at the beginning with like, oh, do you understand what you're signing up for? And that once he dies, I think the original might be the one whose hand cuts off. I doubt it. I think, the original either gets killed in the process of making the copy, or, making the stamp or whatever digital imprint they need to be able to clone him, or he is the first expendable, and then once that original dies, they make it the second one. And the rule is, and it's at least the implication of the game, as it were, or the rules of the world, from the trailer, is that you can't have multiples of the same person out there. And so once one clone is there, you can't make the next one until that one is killed off and incinerated.
Yes, because it's assumed each clone that goes out to do a dangerous job is not going to survive.
But if it does, then it can just do the next job, I think. I don't think they expect it to die, but I think the idea is it is expendable. If it does die, no problem. They just make a new one, which I feel like they could, maybe that'll be a funny moment in the movie where they're like, oh, the cost of coming to get you is more than the cost to reprint a new one, so we're going to let you freeze to death or whatever. I mean, that's kind of the thing when he falls in the ice. They're like, oh man, Like it looks like
Yeah.
you're down there.
Yeah, it's just weird because like I turned on the captions because I was just like, wait, is he questioning it or is he stating the fact that like we're multiples? But his face, the way he's portraying as he says that line doesn't seem like it's a question. Like I don't know, it or is that he's I don't know. I'm
I
confused
think
there.
it's
And
more
again,
in
like
shock, but yeah, I mean, I think that's the brilliance of the editing though, is that you can kind of mess with people and how you're selecting the quick cuts to do.
do you think there are going to be other multiples of other characters?
Yes, I mean we see the multiples in the scene with the dystopia Mark Ruffalo, Tony Collette characters where they're like, we got to kill the multiples, and there's like
Well,
three of
I
them in
meant,
one.
I guess,
Oh,
I meant
of Robert
more of like
Pattinson.
of not Robert, but of like Mark Ruffalo or Steven Yeun, like those other
I feel
main
like
casts.
I want, and I don't know if this it would happen, but I want at the end like the clones to revolt, and there's just like mini groups of clones, and they're all coordinating with each other because they can all think similarly, so that there's just like groups of clones that are fighting against the fascist rule or whatever. But I mean in a dystopic world, I think the people who are always at the top and sort of have these like very conservative perspectives where they think they have to kill off other people or whatever, oftentimes are the ones who are cheating the most. So I wouldn't put it past them that they've got the ability to clone themselves in case they die, so that they never die.
Yeah, so they're not so they're not like assassinated if like, or if they do, they're like, oh well, that's just my double.
Yeah. 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 Or they just print a new one, and they can never die. All right. What's your take on this?
Based on, I'll see this in theaters. I think, it's I'm seeing everything in theaters.
This is 5 to 8 in theaters. We're on
Um,
yeah.
I may not necessarily. I guess we have like these two levels of theaters, right? Like, am I
Opening
seeing it
night versus
opening
seeing
night
it.
or
Yeah, yeah.
weekend? I'll see it in theaters. I think what pushes it over the edge, it's like it's a big sci-fi movie, so it would be cool to see that in a big screen. And it looks fun and different. I like the cast, so I think it'll be. I'll see this in theaters.
Cool.
What about you?
I think I'm gonna try and see it in theaters too. I think I feel like this is one that's like right up my alley. And I think the epic nature of the being in space would be really fun to see in theaters, even though it's a comedy. The juxtaposition of the epic nature and the comedy, I think, could be really fun in theaters. But I also could see myself like buying this to watch it multiple times because it feels like one of those type of movies.
Cool.
And so we're gonna leave the audience with a question. If you're on Spotify, to add a comment, in the vein of another clone movie, Multiplicity, starring Michael Keaton. If you had a clone, what would you like your clone to do, or what would you kind of want to have your clone do? There was the Paul Rudd TV show. What was it? Not Like Me, but
Oh yeah, that was on Netflix, right?
and that one was essentially like he had a clone and it was like a better version of himself, and then they realized they like different things that they were good at, right? And in Multiplicity, there's like 3 clones, and each one is like it's like Gen AI eating itself, that it gets worse and worse. But each one of them was better at something. One was anal retentive, so did like the housework better, and then the other one was like more, I don't know, masculine, and therefore preferred to like build stuff and things like that. So I think it's a interesting question of like, what things do you not want to do? But then you miss out on life on a little bit. So I don't know, maybe
I forgot about that show. Yeah, it was on Netflix. Living with Yourself. I thought it was
living with
pretty
yourself.
good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Can't
enjoyed
remember how it all ended and all that, but I enjoyed it if I
it.
recall.
It had a twist
Um,
ending, so we won't do the spoiler. Um,
mm,
yeah, and then
what would
also,
you do? Well, I guess if you had a clone, like what one thing? I know you probably have a lot of things, but what?
dude, the one thing I know now. The one thing I would have to do is go through and reply to all my emails so that I don't have to deal with email. It's like the bane of my existence is getting emails and then being like, okay, now I gotta have the time to respond. Like if none of us had to actually do emails, but our clone would respond exactly as we would, I feel like we would enjoy life so much more.
I feel like I feel like the responding to emails seems very personal or creative and unique.
Yeah, but it's a clone. It would be do
Well,
exactly the way that I would.
things wouldn't.
I just
Things
wouldn't
would
have
go
to do it.
sideways. Your clone would do something different.
I mean, it's the movie trope. Of course, it goes sideways. That's why you never have your clone do anything. But what would you have your clone do?
Cook.
Oh, see, I like cooking. I mean, who's going to use your cast iron skillet? Like your clone? You're going to let your clone touch your cast iron skillet?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I just something where I don't have to think about. It's like, oh, it's just like, hey, do that.
Emails.
I'd rather do the emails. I don't mind, but that's me.
All right, you let us know what you would do, and also as always, we got the poll. Are you seeing this movie? And that's it from us at Trailer Teardowns. I'm Evan Vasseisel, and I'm joined by Angel Acevedo. Thanks for listening.
See ya.